All right, so I was asked by one of the subscribers to show the process of cutting the mint, letting it dry, and actually getting it to the stage where I actually make tea. So I put up a couple of videos not too long ago of me harvesting the tea or the mint plants. So I just basically hung it up in the garage and let it dry. Then a couple of days I brought it out into the sun to let it get all the way dry because it wasn't really crispy dry in the garage. So that's what I did the last week or so. I've been putting off doing this because just haven't had the time. What I'll do now, if the wind cooperates, is I'll go ahead and crunch this up and put it in these three jars here because I have three different types of mint that I harvested. I have the sweet mint, the spearmint, and the peppermint, and they're all separated really nicely now because I put different color rubber bands on to designate which flavor I have. So that's what we'll do now. So I'll start with the green, which is the sweet mint, because it seems like I got most of that and maybe a lot of stalks. So I'm going to cut it off. I put this yarn on it to dry it all together. So hopefully with me crunching it up, the wind doesn't take it and blow it away. I have a little placemat here that I'm going to crunch it on, then I can take it. Hopefully, and this is something I'm doing for the first time, I'll do it like this and just hopefully pour it in there if the wind doesn't come around the corner here and just start scattering it all over the place. I'm hoping it won't, so that's what we're going to attempt right now. So first of all, I'll take this green rubber band off because that's how I know which is which, because I marked it by putting this on, or a rubber band on each bundle of mint. So I'll put that on it so I know that it's green. So this is going to be a little tricky because I feel the wind is already here. It may not work that well, but look, we're going to give it a shot anyway. So crunching up the tea leaves. And once I do that, I'll go ahead and take some of the stems and everything out. And this has been sitting in the sun for a few days, so it should be pretty dry. Uh-oh, here's the wind. So I'm going to save as much as I can. So this is all crunched up nicely. And what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and get it in the jars right now because the wind is starting to kick up a little bit and I don't want to lose it. So I'll put it in the jars now and I'll come back another time and really get the stems and everything out of it. So that should be okay. There are quite a bit of stems in it already, which is making it a little difficult to put in the jar here, but we're gonna keep going with it. And one of the things I was thinking about also is not cross-contaminating, well, not cross-contaminating, but just getting the different flavors mixed together. But since it is tea and it's for me, I don't think I'm gonna be too upset if I get a little bit of a taste of another flavor in one specific one. So that's what I have there thus far, and that was pretty quick, right? So just crunch it up a little bit because it's nice and dry from the sun. So what I'll do is I'll take it inside or something where there isn't too much more wind, and I'll crunch it down again and take out more of these stems in it so that it'll be just tea for the most part. But this is one of those things that's bound to happen because this is not a factory done process, so human element always comes into play with that. So I won't get all the stems out, but I'll get enough out to make sure I have some some good tasting tea, and it'll fit into bags and whatnot. So I'm going to leave that one as it is. So that was green, so that was my sweet mint. Of course, you can see from the top, it's not quite as small as some of it on the bottom. But like I said, I'll go ahead and crunch it up a little bit more a little bit later, and I'll get hopefully more out of it. So I'll clean this up. And of course, this is just going to be trash over here. So I'll try and get all of that out. And I use this piece of plexi right here to put things on also, just to kind of keep it nice and clean looking. I've been keeping this plexi around like I do a lot of other things here at the house for projects that I have. I've used most of it, but there are a couple more projects that hopefully I'll have for the rest of it. So now I have the yellow, and the yellow is spearmint. So I'm going to go ahead and start that, and hoping that the wind doesn't kick up just when I do it, because usually that's what happens with winds. I found that anytime I'm shooting something and I want to put a big light up on a stand outside or something, the wind will come in. It'll just wreak havoc on my light and my patience. So that's normally what happens. So I'm not going to get upset or anything, because that's just the way it goes. What can you say? So once again, I'll get my jar ready. I ordered these jars just a couple days ago because I was going to do this a little bit earlier in the week, but I remembered I didn't have any place to put it. So I had to order some. Oops, this yellow rubber band broke. So, well, either way, I still know that's where it came from. Uh-oh, there's a wind, of course, once again. So I had to get these jars anyway, so they finally came in, and I was able to get started on doing this today, although I wanted to do it a few days ago. But it is what it is, and it's happening, so that's a good thing. So a lot of these stems came out, which was good. And maybe next time in the harvest process, I can actually take the leaves off, but it dries a lot better when I just hang it up the way it is with the stems and everything on it. So we'll see. And maybe had I not put those together, maybe I could have done something with the stems individually, separately. But, you know, I have another batch of mint that I have to harvest, so maybe I can do that. But as with everything else that I do, that I don't do too much, it's all an experiment. So this is what we have. I don't know how to say it any other differently or better, but that's what it is. So right now the wind is doing okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and kind of press it out a little bit more to just get a little bit more of the stems out and make it a little bit smaller. And that'll just make my work a little bit easier a little bit later when I take it all out of the jars again. Or I can just leave it until I get more, because I think in one of the last videos I said that I was hoping I could come back in a month and do another harvest. So I think it's just about that time, because the leaves, the mints are doing really well. So I might be able to go ahead and start another drying process and get more. So maybe I just leave it as it is, get more, and then just really crunch it down. But this glass is almost full with just 1 month's worth. So maybe it'll be the same, or I can just crunch it all down, but we'll see. It's a process in the making, and I'm learning. So that's what we have. So this actually worked out really well on this one. So this you probably can't see, but it's a lot finer. So that's just the kind of the way I want. Now on this side here is, I still have a few more stems, so I'll have to go back, just like I'll have to do with this, and just take it out and just make it a little bit more finer. and I think that will probably do it. I'll go ahead and put this in here some kind of ways just so that I know what it is. So that's that. So we've got sweet mint and spearmint. Sweet mint, spearmint. So now I'll get ready for the peppermint. And by the way, how this stuff smells really good. Too bad you guys can't really smell it, but it does smell good. So I'll just clean some of this off because the wind is blowing it around a little bit. So that's good, that's good. And this is my processing station as we would have it. So now we are doing the peppermint. So we're going to do the same process. Oops, don't want to cut the rubber band. The last one broke, so let's not cut this one. So let's do this. This one may break also, who knows, but we'll give it a shot. These are not the best rubber bands, so it could break also, but we're gonna see. Well, maybe not. Okay, rubber band is intact. Put it around the jar. That's good. Now wind seems to be good right this moment. So we crunch, crunch, crunch. Oop, there's a wind. Take some of those sticks out. A few of these sticks. There, there, there. I also have a little bit of the longevity spinach here, that herbal plant that I mix with it, but there's only just a few leaves because I haven't really harvested that yet. I just pulled a few leaves off because I was getting rid of some worms and everything, so I pulled a few leaves off and I dried those instead of just throwing it away. So I'll just put that in one of the jars. I have a bunch more of that growing because, or actually I have a bunch more of it because I haven't harvested, and the leaves are getting really, really big and they look really nicely, so they're going to dry up real nice. So I'll put some of that in with each of the different types of the tea, so that will add a little extra herbal element to it and a little bit of a remedy. The longevity spinach is supposed to be good for a lot of things medicinally, so it's always good to have a little bit of that crunched up in there to help everything do what it's supposed to do, whatever it's supposed to do. Oh, this peppermint smells really nice. Wow. Oh, that wind is starting to kick up a little bit. So let's just go ahead and get this in. Yeah, like I say, anytime you start doing something where you don't want the wind, it's always there. I'm sure if I was trying to fly a kite, there would be no wind anywhere until I decided I didn't want to fly a kite anymore. But such is life. But we do what we can and we make things work the way they work. So that's what we have. So like I said, I'll go back through and I'll crunch this up some more. I'll take the stems out and just make sure that it's a pretty good mix. Wow, that's pretty nice. That is actually pretty nice. I just had a little bit of the tea that I harvested before a few nights ago, and it just reminded me what a nice thing it is just to be able to harvest and process your own tea or whatever it is that you're doing. It's just harkens back to the good old days when I was younger, growing up in the South. And I know I've said that before. It's like I've grown up here, but I'm from the South. But in reality, I've been in Southern California since I was 12 years old. But as far as I'm concerned, I spent my formative years in Alabama. And my formative years, I think, let's just talk Alabama time. That's more like anywhere from 3 on. It's when you really get into being who you're going to be. And I think I was really on my way into being who I am today back then. I think as I get older, I'm getting more and more like I probably would have been if I was in the South, the way I think, how I think, I believe, and the things that I do. So that's why I say those were my formative years, even though I was 12 when I came out here. And most people would say that I spent my formative years here, but I just like to think it's a little different. But anyway, I think it's nice to be able to do such a thing as this, to be able to harvest your own tea and a couple other things. And see, that's pretty nice. Now, since I've been standing here talking to you guys, I've actually crunched it down a lot more. So it was about the same as most of it, but you can see the difference between the jars. It's a whole lot less since I've crunched it down more. So I just maybe be able to leave it like this and put more in it and then crunch it down at that point. So now, since all that's done, I'm going to get my longevity spinach here. I'm just going to crunch this up. I can see a couple of leaves in there from the tea. So I'm going to crunch this up, and then I'm going to add it to this jar here. No, actually I'll do it here since there's not that much in there, and I don't have that much of this longevity spinach. I'll go ahead and put that in there. And that'll be a good mixture, I think. And I'll add more also. Now, what I normally do sometimes with this longevity spinach, I'll just go out into the garden when I'm watering or something. I'll just pull off a couple of leaves and I'll just munch on it, because it said that it's good to consume that way also. Because of course it's fresh and you're getting everything out of it being fresh. So I do that sometimes too. Now, I won't be doing it here of late, because what I've done is I've put some 7 dust on it just to keep the worms away, because I did see a little worm activity going on with it. So I did put a little bit on there so I can try and keep the worms at bay. And I think I've done pretty well with it. Oops. Oh, the wind was coming in, trying to take more away. Okay, so you can see that there's a little brownness in there, so that's a good thing. So there's a little bit more on here. So it turns out these placemats are really good for that. So now I'll just shake it up, and we got that going. So now we have some peppermint, and we have some sweet mint, and we have the spearmint. So this is what you get from the 3 bundles that I harvested in the last couple of videos. And since I'm talking about that, I'll go ahead and pull a little bit of these stems out also, since the wind may have chilled out a little bit. So I'll go ahead and crunch this up a little bit more. That way the actual leaves will separate more from the stems, and I'll figure out some way to go ahead and make it more of a systematic process to get the stems out or get them separated from the actual leaves. So this shrank down a whole lot too once I just kind of crunch them up a little bit more, which is a good thing. So actually I won't have to take everything out. I'll just try and fish out some of the stems. Yeah, so that's a good thing there. So now these two are crunched down. So since I'm doing it, let's go ahead and go with this, because this is the first one I did. So it had a lot more, but I think I can crunch it down a little bit more so that I'll have more room in there. And then there are quite a bit more stems in here, because sometimes when you first start something, it's usually the first thing you do that you can always go back and do more. And it's just like that with this, because I even put more stems in there because the wind was kicking up a lot, so I didn't want to lose any. So it works out pretty good. So looks like this is still going to be a good bit, so that's okay though. So yeah, and of course, you know, I don't have the gloves on and all that kind of good stuff, because this is not for sale. This is for me to consume myself, so I don't really worry about that kind of thing, because I know what my hands have been, so it's all good. So if you're wondering why, that's why, because this is just for my personal consumption. And of course, I don't think I'd ever try and do this on a larger scale to sell or anything like that, because that's going to be, I just have to do a lot more of the process to get to that scale, and that's not something I really want to do. This is just for me and my personal consumption. I don't think my wife even drinks this. I don't know, but it's in there if anybody else does, so whatever. So yeah, this is working its way down too. So even with that, I've crunched it down to that much. So that's what we have. Oh, and that came out, so I'll put this back in. I have a pen here. I'll go ahead and just mark these so I can get rid of these rubber bands, because this one's giving me a little trouble trying to stay on, but all right. There we go. So there you have it. We have that done, and we are ready to call it quits. So these are all the stems. Like I said, maybe next time I'll take the stems off and let the leaves dry by themselves, but we'll see. Always an experiment, a process, and working things out. So that's what we have. So maybe I'll show when I do more, but I think this is probably enough, because that's the process I just used is what I'll more than likely be using for the next one. So there you are.